It is now 12 hours 18 in Guyana. With your news at this time, I'm Kevin Smith. 2 years after approving ExxonMobil's $9 billion budget to produce 600 barrels of oil from the Payara project in the Stabroek Block, Guyanese authorities are yet to commence a critical audit that would ensure the country is not paying more than it should. The PPPC administration approved the project on September 30th, 2020. But even before this was done, ExxonMobil Corporation's subsidiary, ESSO, was already signing key contracts to ensure the project's scheduled startup this year experienced no delays. Vice President Bharat Jagdeo was asked recently about the projected start of the audit, but he indicated that he was not aware of the state of play on this front. He directed us to seek further clarity from the Natural Resources Minister. The 2016 production sharing agreement for the Stabroek Block only furnishes the government with a 2-year deadline to complete critical audits of Exxon's expenses. If it fails to do so, it would have to accept costs as is. And amid mounting calls for this country to be more prudent in its stewardship of the oil and gas industry, Guyana's top political leaders have likened local advocates championing a better deal for citizens as hypocrites, insisting that they will not budge and will continue their program. Following the signing of the lopsided contract between the government and ExxonMobil, Guyanese at home and abroad have been calling for a renegotiation of the deal to secure greater benefits for citizens. And although while in opposition, the PPPC government had promised to renegotiate the contract, which was signed by the APNU-AFC government, once it got into government, it changed its tune. President Ali said hypocrites is the ideal term to define Guyanese who have been critical of his government's management of the oil and gas sector and its stewardship of the environment. He claimed that the environmentalists who have sought to steer his government in the right direction are attempting to poison and stop the blooming petroleum sector in the country. President Ali spoke just after his vice president, Bharat Jagdeo, who insisted that such persons with ulterior motives should stop hiding behind the titles such as environmentalists and biologists. A 17-year-old farmer of Bonasika Creek is feared dead after the paddle boat he was in sank on Saturday on the Essequibo River at Bonasika Creek. The missing farmer was identified only as Chino of Region 1. According to police, the boat capsized around 21 hours while Chino and 2 other occupants were paddling to Bonasika. The 2 occupants made it to safety and were identified as 24-year-old Mark LaCruz and 29-year-old Antonio. Police investigators learned that the 3 men were reportedly drinking alcohol in the boat as they paddled to their destination. Along the journey, one of the teenage farmers began rocking the boat, causing it to capsize. And just before we head to a break, let's tell you that Attorney at Law and Chartered Accountant Christopher Ram believes that Vice President Bharat Jagdeo, who has overall responsibility for the petroleum sector, is dodging that responsibility by placing the onus on the Environmental Protection Agency for ensuring that ExxonMobil complies with its insurance obligations. The attorney said that the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act grants to the minister responsible for petroleum the power to issue production licenses subject to such conditions as he thinks fit. The role of the Environmental Protection Agency is to consider the impact of any project on the environment, and as part of the approval process, it is the responsibility of the minister to take account of any recommendations by the EPA, he explained. While the license may have been signed by Minister Vikram Bharat, it is the Vice President who is assigned overall responsibility for petroleum. Ram is convinced that Jagdeo's response during his press conference on Friday to publisher of Kaieteur News, Mr. Glenn Lal, was a deliberate attempt to mislead the public.
Insurance, I ask, has nothing to do with
insurance. I told you the EPA, they have to get the parent company guarantee. I have expressed concerns myself. If you think you're just concerned, we are building capacity in these sectors. Some of the concerns are also our concern. The parent guarantee should have been done already.
That's what we want to hear.
The parent should have been done already.
Okay.
It has to be done soon. We told the EPA, give this Exxon a deadline. Give them a deadline for doing this. It should have been done. That one, you're right on. It should have been done.
Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and
SMB's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Not a single bar of service.
Not with us. Digicel officially has the best mobile coverage in Guyana. Be it in Aishalton or in Etteringban, we got you covered. Digicel, better together.
Welcome back. The new petroleum production bill to update and modernize Guyana's existing legislation will be made public shortly. This is according to Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal, who made this known during last Tuesday's edition of his weekly show, Issues in the News. Guyana has a Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, which was enacted in the 1980s. Nandlal explained that the Petroleum Act was enacted when the country was not a petroleum producer, and since Guyana has moved successfully into that sector, the current piece of legislation has become outmoded and cannot be a proper regulatory framework for the current sector. Ohio's commission in charge of new rules for leasing state lands to oil and gas companies will be pushing for increased royalty rates to at least 12.5%. Nick Evans for the Ohio Capital Journal reported that the commission will seek legislative tweaks to award leases through bidding and to allow for more lucrative royalties. Ohio is a state in the Midwestern United States. Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District Executive Director Craig Butler encouraged the Commission to look at their operation as a model, but not necessarily an approach to replicate completely. One aspect commissioners picked up on is how the district handles royalties, which is a share of the operator's income handed over to the landowner. Meanwhile, retired Assistant Commissioner of Police Paul Slow, in a letter penned on Sunday, posited that corrupt practices in the issuance of driver's license is one of the main causes behind the recent surge of fatal road accidents. According to the Ministry of Home Affairs, 16 persons were killed in road accidents from January 1st to February 18th, 2023, a 100% increase when compared to the same period last year. The ministry attributed the increase to reckless driving, speeding, driving under the influence, and a total disregard for the 5 C's, and noted too that stringent law enforcement will be needed to ensure drivers follow the road rules. According to Slow, the real problem is the corrupt system that exists when it comes to the issuance of driver's licenses. Slow wrote, while adding corruptly providing a driver's license to unqualified persons is akin to providing those persons with a license to kill. To back up his view that there is widespread corruption in the country's driver's learning program for the issuance of driver's license, Slow provided some stats from 2022, given the head of the force's audit and inspection unit, Julius Wright. He revealed that some 397 persons did not write the driver's exam but received passing marks. Another 79 did not register for the exam but still received passing marks, while 21 received passing marks before even writing the exams. Slow also quoted a few articles where police ranks and Guyana Revenue Authority employees were arrested and charged for being involved in driver's license fraud. He noted that the evidence suggests that the system is corrupt and needs compelling attention. And to wrap things up, we turn the pages of today's Kaieteur News to page 7. What's in it for Guyanese? Today, when all Guyanese should be in rejoicing over their rich gifts, there is worry that the prospering touch and taste of this oil would be out of reach of most Guyanese. Plenty is coming to the surface from a comprehensive and credible environmental impact assessment commissioned by ExxonMobil for its fifth oil project, Oahu. In January, Guyanese learned from the assessment for its fifth project that the local fishing sector could be decimated. This is a troubling consideration given that the fishing sector is taking its share of licks. Fisherfolk had already complained about poor catch and the different quality of catch, despite spending longer times and more money per trip